How shale oil works, unearthing the basics of a controversial resource. Hey, I'm G. Let me ask you, have you ever driven past a gas station and wondered where the oil in your tank actually comes from? Or maybe you've heard the term oil shale thrown around in news segments about energy independence and wondered, wait, is that even a real thing? If so, you're not alone. Oil shale is a resource that's been hyped as a potential game changer for energy security, but also criticized for its environmental cost. Today, we're diving into what oil shale is, how it works, and why it's such a lightning rod for debate. Welcome to the stuff you should think about, where I tackle everyday questions about phenomena and objects around you in quick bite sized episodes. I do the digging so you don't have to. And I bring the answers back in a way you can listen to on your break, on your way to work, or whenever you got a little free time. Before we get started, just a quick heads up. I'm not an energy expert or a geologist. I'm just a curious person who did some digging so you don't have to. My goal isn't to tell you what to think or what to do. It's to explain how the system works from a big picture perspective. Feel free to take what I share here as a jumping point for your own research. Step by step mechanics. The journey to understanding oil shale isn't a single event, it's a process with several key steps. Let's break it down. Step one: what is shale oil anyway? Oil shale isn't oil. Instead, it's a fine grained sedimentary rock rich in a waxy organic material called kerogen. Kerogen is like the baby of crude oil. It needs heat to transform into usable hydrocarbons. Think of it as a time capsule. Millions of years ago, algae and other organic matter got trapped in ancient seas, eventually turning it into this carbon rich rock. Most shale oil deposits are found in Green River Formation, which stretches across parts of Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming in the United States. Step two: extracting the shale. The first step is harvesting the oil shale from the ground. This is typically done through surface mining or underground mining. Surface mining is straightforward. Giant machines scoop up the rock and haul it to processing facilities. However, this method is invasive and can scar landscapes, which immediately raises environmental red flags. For now, most U.S. projects focus on surface mining because it's less expensive, but it's a double edged sword. Step three: the retorting process. Here's where things get technical. To extract kerogen, the shale is processed in a method called retorting. This is essentially industrial baking. The rock is heated in a sealed chamber to 7 to 900 degrees Fahrenheit, which vaporizes the kerogen. The resulting hydrocarbons are cooled and collected into a liquid, shale oil. Think of it like baking a cake. The heat transforms a raw, unrecognizable mess into something usable. But unlike a cake, the retorting process releases a lot of greenhouse gases and toxic products. Step four: refining and use. Once the shale oil is extracted, it still needs to be refined into usable products like gasoline, diesel, or jet fuel. This refinement process is similar to how traditional crude oil is processed, but it tends to be more energy intensive because the raw material, shale oil, is heavier and dirtier. The final products are chemically similar to petroleum, but carry a heavier carbon footprint due to the retorting phase. Step 5, the environmental aftermath. Let's not forget about the aftermath. Extracting and processing oil shale generates massive amounts of waste rock, water contamination from mining, and emissions from the retorting stage. For every barrel of shale oil produced, you can expect to burn through 2.5 to 3 barrels of water and emit twice as much CO2 as traditional refining. It's a bit like choosing between a fast food burger and a home cooked meal. If you prioritize convenience, you're trading off long term costs. Step 6, the push for innovation. To mitigate these issues, some companies are experimenting with in situ retorting, a process where heat is injected directly into the underground shale formations instead of mining the rock. This could reduce surface disruption, but it's still in the early stages and has faced technical challenges. Imagine trying to roast a turkey without taking it out of the oven versus roasting it on a pan. Both get the job done, but the former is messier. Bipartisan common ground elements. Even though oil shale is a contentious topic, there are some areas where most people agree. One is energy independence. Both supporters and critics agree that reducing reliance on foreign oil is a national priority. Oil shale could theoretically help the U.S. achieve self sufficiency if the process becomes economically and environmentally viable. Two, innovation matters. There's broad consensus that technological breakthroughs like cleaner retorting methods or improved efficiency could make oil shale less harmful. Three, balancing jobs and environment. Most stakeholders agree that energy products should support local economies but also protect ecosystems. The debate usually centers on how to strike that balance. Historical context. The idea of using shale oil is nothing new. In the 1970s, during the Arab oil embargo, U.S. invested heavily in shale oil research, even building prototype plants in Colorado. However, the technology was too costly and inefficient at the time, and interest waned. Fast forward to 2008, when oil prices hit $140 a barrel. Suddenly, oil shale lobbyists were back in the spotlight. Legal precedents. Oil shale development is governed by a patchwork of federal and state laws. The Clean Air Act regulates emission from retorting facilities. The Clean Water Act addresses water contamination from mining and processing. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, requires environmental impact assessments for new projects. State regulations. Colorado and Utah now require companies to prove they can reclaim mined land to original condition, a major hurdle for large scale development. My personal bias. Now, I want to be transparent about my own bias. I tend to lean toward pragmatism. I see oil shale as a potential bridge in our transition to renewable energy, especially for sectors like aviation and shipping that struggle with electrification. That said, I also recognize the environmental cost and the risk of delaying investments in solar, wind, and EV infrastructure. My lens is if we can make this cleaner, why not? But I'm also wary of treating oil shale as a silver bullet when it comes to climate goals. Historical parallels. To put things in perspective, let's look at a historical parallel. The shift from whale oil to petroleum in the 19th century. Whaling was economically lucrative but ethically unsustainable and environmentally devastating. Literally, whales were nearly driven to extinction. Petroleum offered a scalable alternative, and while it solved one problem, it created new ones. Climate change. The lesson: innovation often swaps one set of challenges for another. Oil shale could be a similar pivot if we're smart about it. Multiple solutions for one goal. There's no single path forward. Here are a few different approaches that people are taking. One is green retorting technologies. Companies are experimenting with solar powered heating or carbon capture systems to reduce emissions. Hybrid models, investing in both oil shale and renewable, using shale as a temporary backup until green energy solutions scale up. Policy incentives. Governments offer tax breaks for cleaner extraction methods or stricter penalties for carbon pollution, nudging the industry toward sustainability. Energy storage innovation. If we focus on batteries, hydrogen, or other storage solutions, we might not need oil shale at all by 2040. These aren't mutually exclusive, and the final answer will probably be a mix of several. In summary, so what should you think about when it comes to oil shale? It's a complex, multi stage process involving geology, industrial chemistry, and environmental trade offs. While the science works, the economics and ethics are still up for debate. There's no magic bullet, but there are lots of tools in the toolbox, and how we use them will define the future of energy. That's it for this episode of The Stuff You Should Think About. Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. Leave a comment with your thoughts or a topic you'd like to hear about next time. Until next time, stay curious. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Statements are based on current understanding and public information.